Right, let's keep pushing onwards on the cloud planet. We've got an Aurora unit to cure. Not that I can find it in me to give that much of a damn about the biological supercomputer, outside of it being something we need to turn on to figure out our next major objective. And I'm sure there's gonna be some things that slow us down getting to it, considering how things went back on the previous planet.
Samus, your highest priority is to get Skytown's Aurora unit back online. It will help.
Yes, we can already know that. Sure, I loaded the game, so it's possibly been a while, but did you really feel the need to remind us? I can't help finding the way they do that kind of reminder a bit insulting, especially since we already have the marker that says where we need to go next. Hell, we're in the floating building with the Aurora unit already. It's not like it's much of a trip from here. Right, downwards to our very close objective. Phase on Mars. Probably a good sign we're close. And there's our objective, covered in that phase-on gunk. Again, the fact that we're going to be able to cure this thing of phase-on, but we're not able to cure ourselves or the other hunters we've worked on Norian for a short period of time, just... Truly, you are an expert at stating things we've already realized. Of course there is. It's a Metroid game. That is how things have flowed for the entire franchise. Again, I don't need you to tell us that. And we didn't need to be told that in the earlier Metroids. While I wouldn't say the Aurora is the most annoying video game helper ever, she's certainly quite the drop down in quality from Atom Infusion and Dread for us. And that makes the games where we had nobody actively telling us what to do feel that little bit better for me. Definitely not the intended result of the Aurora unit around here. Right, another cannon to roll into. Small, spherical objects that just happen to be the size of Samus in Morph Ball form. Again, is there anything anywhere on this planet that's approximately the same size and shape as Samus in Morph Ball form? I'm kinda getting sick of seeing things that are purely designed for the player character just for the sake of it. Anyway, looks like Core left his suit behind. Part of me finds it funny trying to imagine him wandering the same small areas we have with a massive thing like that. And how does he get from floating building to floating building? Does that thing fly? The environments on this planet were explicitly designed for Samus to wander around, not someone in a truck-sized mech. It almost feels more blatant than any other planet we've gone to in this entire franchise. And maybe that's just me giving the earlier games we played more credit than they really deserve because of my bad mood in this one. But that's where my brain ended up going. Seriously, as I said before, this game feels more linear than any other Metroid. And since the puppeteer strings are more blatant than before, it's hard for the game to pull off the whole epic conflict to stop an encroaching evil plot. A plot that wasn't helped by Act 3 pulling stuff that wasn't even hinted at in Acts 1 and 2, just to try to up the stakes for the finale of the trilogy. Or the fact that Brio and Alicia feels like they may as well be the same planet in my mind. Then I suppose we may as well use the control terminal. We'll try that opening later at some point. not really able to do this with the kind of precision that you should be able to have, since I'm using a keyboard and mouse instead of actual motion controls. Still, as annoying as this kind of lock is, it's still more plausible for me to get through with my iffy control scheme than if I tried doing any self-scans while we're on our ship. Right, that did nothing other than open up the path that would have let us come back the way we came from. But I suppose that's worth opening up at some point. So, the Chozo left their creations after 400 years. At least that's better than the creations going to war against their creators. That's a bit of a cliche. Still, a bit of an asshole move to just pack up, leave, and not mention in any way how to contact them on a whim. Yeah, you failed at a task that you probably weren't properly told about because we need the player character a long time after to solve things for the galaxy. The failure is the fault of the Chozo for telling you to find a solution to something they put aside instead of outright solving or saying they had no way to solve it with what they have. And I doubt that the robots on this planet could make anything better than what the Chozo did. Well, that looks interesting. Evacuation pods, huh? I'm sure that's going to be important at some point in the future. Doubt it's much of a spoiler that things are going to blow up at some point later on, especially considering all the explosions that Samus has been near over the course of the franchise. I just wish I could look forward to what we're going to see that might require us to get into an escape pod later. I'm just not all that invested in what's going on in this game. I'm going through it more because we went through the effort of going through the previous 2 Metroid Primes. Right, a landing zone that isn't available yet for some reason. Well, we're certainly running into a good number of things that we aren't able to use at the moment. Is it a bad thing that I find that a bit of a relief, considering how we kept getting told the exact coordinates we need to go for a good amount of this game? Right. Looks like this building is essentially a dead end, and apparently I'm sleepwalking so much that I'll just walk right off the floating building. Pretty embarrassing. But the lack of any real punishment makes it hard to really give a damn. Well, that upgrade looks like something I just can't give a damn about. I know I keep saying it, but what is even the point of the ship missile expansions? At least with power bombs, you might use them against regular grunts for the hell of it, as well as opening specific doors. I know I should stop complaining about the whole missiles on the ship thing, but can you really blame me for being annoyed by it? Especially since every other Metroid, they didn't really have the ship contributing anything to the game outside of being a save point that replenished ammo and health, and it still worked pretty well. In this game, the ship is in that awkward space between actually useful and barely there. Well, since the other path is a bust for now, let's try this one. Bloody hell, not even sure what the point of the little rail things is if the game isn't going to try throwing obstacles at us. Why did we get obstacles of varying kinds for the first few things we grappled and grinded from side to side on, but not the ones this far in? And should I feel worried that the place we just got to is a little on the creaky side? Yet another thing we're not going to be able to access without the proper upgrade. Oddly enough, this kind of annoyance feels more in line with what we would expect in a Metroid game than what we came across on Norian and Rio. Norian could get away with that, though, because it was a prologue. And in some ways, that kind of makes the level design for the previous two planets just feel that little bit more baffling to me, though. I'm pretty sure the same team worked on all three games, and while I get that they were trying to go for something different for the finale of the trilogy, why does Prime 3 just feel like it doesn't fully belong in the Metroid series for me? Was kind of expecting a safe point behind that door, not a path with some gates. Hell, why does this path get gates like this? Why a walking path at all when every other section between buildings has required us to either load ourselves into a cannon and get fired, or use the grapple beam and grind to it? Son of a bitch, this game is sending in Dragoons that have even less to do with light cavalry than the Dragoons in StarCraft. It's literally just another take on the Jolly Roger drones the pirates have. We just need to use the grapple beam instead of the power beam to kill them. Have I mentioned that the grapple beam feels kind of overused to me in this game? Okay. So, the missile upgrade certainly seems to be in an awkward spot to reach. And it turned out to be less troublesome than I was expecting. Again, the upgrades as a whole don't feel as tough to reach in this game as the other Metroids. I'm not a completionist, that's not really something that bothers me all that much, but it's still pretty noticeable. Right. Of course things are a bit creaky here. Creaky to the point that things start to break down just as we happen to arrive. Again, not really a bad trope in itself, but I don't feel like it really belongs in a Metroid game. This is more like something that would fit into the Uncharted series or games similar to that. I'm sorry, I don't give a damn how stylish our kills are or how many we get. I just care about making more progress, gaining the gear we're gonna need to unlock the paths that are currently locked off for us at the moment. Escaping a bridge that was collapsing should have been an amazing moment, but I've seen that sort of thing done better in a lot of other games. Games that were at their core meant for that kind of quick chaos. But Metroid Prime can't really pull off moments of urgency well without an explicit timer on screen. Metroid Prime 1 and 2 could get away with it to a degree, but there was rarely a moment where things try to make things more outright frantic instead of just speeding things up a bit. But dear God, the 2D games are better suited for fast-paced stuff around here. We don't move that fast in the Prime games, and scanning really encourages us to be methodical as we move from point to point. So why does this game, which isn't really in the action genre like a lot of other first-person shooters, trying to pull off those kinds of tropes? This game should have done more to try to build tension, not have moments where battles go on around us or we need to rush from point to point. Okay, apparently we're not blasting our way through that barrier. Back to the previous platform then. Nice to know, but how do we enter the floating structure that's holding them? No way for us to interact with that, so it's probably not the way forward at the moment. nothing to do in here at the moment, even if we can fit. Is this even the right road? As a side note, anyone else noticing that I just haven't been looking at the map all that often in my own, compared to other Metroid games? I know I keep saying it, but again, this game is far more linear than the others. It's probably not the way we're supposed to go, but it's worth checking if we can go back from here. Doesn't look like we've got any grapple point to head back from here, and no cannon to get fired from. I guess the only way forward is the area we just left. At least that's not as obnoxious as the Aurora telling us where to go and what to do in so many of the steps along the way of our journey here. And of course, as I say that, she decides to say something. Because again, for some absurd reason, this game is not as interested in us exploring things as every other Metroid entry. Is this because I have a setting on that says to have the hint system make announcements or something? Because I don't recall the hint system being so prompt or annoying in the other two Metroid Primes where it was available. If anything, I was absolutely frustrated in both games near the end that the hint system didn't speed things up for the hunt for the various keys for the final area of the game in any way. There's gotta be a good middle ground between not informative enough to help us figure things out and being so handholdy that it's insulting. There's our way to make progress. I probably should have noticed that earlier. Okay, we're in and we're going to start dropping those odd barriers. Moments like this feel more like a Metroid than us running across that bridge just before it fell. Definitely an odd one no matter how I look at it. Seriously, I know the game is trying to be something new to the franchise, and again, the next game they released was Metroid Other M, even more of a divergence. Metroid Other M was very unique in comparison to everything else in terms of gameplay and storytelling, and the storytelling was so hated that it put the franchise into stasis for quite a while. The kind of stasis where Nintendo thought they could make a party game, Federation Force, and shove it into the already well-established and well-regarded universe, despite the fact that it did not fit. It's just very strange to me that Metroid wanted to stop being Metroid for a good while, and this game was the first unintentional step in that direction. Sure, it never had the success levels of Pokemon or Mario, but it certainly had a very dedicated fan base. I get that sometimes you want to shake things up, grow from your origins, but you need to think about the factors that brought people in the first place. Once you've analyzed things and realized what the core elements are, you can keep those while finding things to place on top of that foundation. Once a series loses track of the core elements, it stops being interesting to the audience. Ace Combat Assault Horizon was a train wreck in the main section of the game that players should have been interested in. Halo 4 was when people started falling out of that series, and the only real glimmer of old glories was Halo Wars 2, which wasn't even a first-person shooter but did a better job telling a Halo story than anything else 343 has pumped out. Okay, nothing over there. Guess we're using the handprint thing to move that platform. There we go. Now that platform isn't just sitting in the middle of nowhere. And of course the enemy was waiting for us. Too bad the drone, they said, was pretty forgettable, like most of the other non-bosses in a Metroid game. Back to full health, and looks like we're gonna have to turn on another elevator to get where we need to be. And given that room is the same spot that the Aurora pointed us to, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a boss fight room. Not that the game has given us any hints of what we'll be fighting in there, or what the reward afterwards would be. So the reward is the boost. Well, since this isn't a particularly memorable boss, it's probably not going to be too rough. Hello there. You'll excuse me if I'm not particularly enthusiastic for fighting you here. I'm feeling a good deal more fatigued for this game than I probably should this many clips in. Partly because the game has made a number of narrative and level design decisions that disappointed me. It's not your fault, I assure you. Right. Of course there's some grappling needed here. I swear, Batman doesn't use his grapple gun as frequently as Samus uses her grapple beam in this game. Not feeling all that threatened by the big guy despite the explosive balls he sent our way. Mostly because we have an obscene amount of health. Seriously, the defense drone is nearly down to half, and we haven't even lost a quarter of our total. At this exchange rate, things are pretty one-sided. So unless the big guy has other tricks he's gonna pull as he gets more damage, this battle is already decided. Grapple again, and the weak point is open for a good amount of time again. I should probably do a better job of leading the target when he jumps from one platform to the next, but then we have to be pinpoint accurate to cause damage, even when his weak point is open. It's probably just better to hold our fire when he's moving from point to point. Ah, so the balls have gained a tracking ability. I suppose that's one way to change things up. Anyway, hoping the next time we open his center is going to be the last one for this fight. It's not that I think things will start getting dangerous if I have to do this up and dance a fourth time, just that I'd rather get a move on. Hopefully, I won't have that attitude for the entire rest of the game. Again, with all the issues I have against Metroid Prime 3, it is still a fun game, and I certainly remember it more fondly than Prime 2, and definitely a lot more than Other M and Federation cores. So the little antenna things regenerate this far in. Annoying, especially since I'm not all that accurate with this game's aiming system. This sort of thing is probably one of the many reasons they're holding off on re-releasing this game for the Switch. So much of this game revolves around the motion controls, combat and non-combat related tasks. And considering the trouble I had getting this game to work properly with a keyboard and mouse, I'm sure Nintendo is pulling their hair out trying to get it to work with a more traditional control scheme. balls damaging us doesn't stun us, and sometimes it does. It just kind of feels arbitrary. And that does it for this fight. Credit where it's due, this boss took out over 200 of our health. Too bad for him, he needed to take out 599 to win. Anyway, this is about as good a time as any to finish this clip. If I just let the raw footage go, then it'll definitely be over half an hour long. And as stopping points go, beating a boss is pretty solid. Next time, we get to the Aurora unit on this planet. Wish I could say I'm looking forward to it.